Here's a short demo of the BCXLIFF Manager translation tool. It comes with a small role center that you can see here that lets you see your open projects and what state they're in and so on, and gives you access to the actually just two main menu items. To pick the role center, just choose the translation role that comes with the tool. To get started with setup, open the translation setup and pick the default source language for BC projects. It's almost always going to be ENU for ENU as English US. You also pick here which translate tools you want to use. But before you do, go ahead and initialize the ISO languages. This will automatically update the language table with any missing ISO codes, which are the ones we use for the XLIFF files. Then pick which of the machine translations tools you'd like to use. Certainly, at the moment, there's support for 3. There's the free Google Translate API. You have to be aware that it's kind of an undocumented API. It has rate limits, and it might change or go away in the future. If you have an OpenAI subscription, you can enable OpenAI and put in your OpenAI key. The models supported are currently the GPT-3.5 Turbo and the GPT-4o models. They're both extremely cheap. Both are below about $50 for 1,000 text translations. I like to use the 4o model. I think it gives better results than the 3.5 Turbo, and it's still fast and reasonably cheap. The third model is the DeepL translation tool. If you have an API key for that, the free account lets you translate up to 500,000 characters per month. So that can be a good choice as well. Now let's create a translation project. So I open the list of projects and create a new one. I'll just call it Demo. And I could fill in more information, but I just want to import one of my existing projects, which is what you'll usually be doing. So I switch to the small translation project, demo project that I did. It's the typical hello world that you get when you create a new AL project. There's a table with some fields and captions, and I had defined 3 different labels. One of them is locked, so that shouldn't show up in the translation files. And then I've used the XLIFF sync tool to create 2 translations, one for Danish and one for Swedish. And then there's the transtest.g file. That's the source for the translations. So to import this, I just need to put it all into one zip file. Then they can be imported as one project. So let's just switch to the Explorer and create a zip file for the project. I just add everything. You can actually add everything in the translation folder. The tool will skip anything that's not XLIFF. So now we are ready to import the project from the zip file we just created. So I'll go and select the trans test zip file, and we'll see that we get 3 files imported like expected. We can inspect the source text that was imported, and you can recognize these from the source code we looked at earlier. If we go back, we can see the target languages, the Danish and Swedish translations was created, and the existing translations has been imported. So if we look at translation targets, we can see that the Swedish translation for Hello World is already there. There's actually also a translation for name, and that's because I have another project, another translation project in the tool where I've already translated name. We'll show it later how we can use that for the reference translations to get all of the standard app translations in automatically. But now let's look at how to translate the rest of the texts. We can translate the labels one by one. So just select one of the texts missing translation and click translate. And here we get the Danish translation for Hello World. There's different actions at the top that can help us filter and select missing translations. I can, for example, choose to just look at the empty translations. I could translate all the Danish missing texts, but much easier if we go back out to the project list. I can actually open all missing translation for the entire project. So you see here I get both Danish and Swedish missing texts. When I click translate all, I choose to convert just the ones missing. I get all of the remaining texts translated. There's a few here that I recognize, like the purchaser code is one of the standard translations. It's a standard field label. And I'll show you in a second how we can get the standard translations in and use as a reference. To make use of the standard translations from Business Central, so we get the same terms used when we use a standard term in our projects, you can import a reference project. So let's just first create a new project called reference, like this, and I will call it BC standard, like that. And for this, I will just create the target languages for the demo here. I will just import the Danish texts. And when I do import target, I have a copy of the on-prem BC26. So here I have Danish language, and here's the base application XLIFF file from the standard application. So I'll import that and make a short clip, because this will take about 10 minutes to import here on my Docker image. Now it's done. So I have the standard application Danish language translations in my reference project. I can see them all if I click translation target. Here are all of the standard translations right into the reference project. Now if I go back, I think I'll just delete my little demo project here. And I'll go ahead and create it again. Just go to demo 2. And just like before, I'll import the zip file, transtest.zip, and it's the same 3 files imported. Now when I open the target languages, I also have the same 2 languages, of course, but when I open translation target now, you'll see that I actually, for the Danish texts here, have the standard translations, both of the simple text, name, code, description, but also the kind of more difficult ERP context translations for lead time calculation and purchaser code, unlike the ones before. So the final thing I want to show is the term protection. This currently only works for the GPT-based translation, but it should be possible to build in for the DeepL translation as well. I'll take a look at that later, or you're welcome to take a look at doing that. Let's say, for the sake of the example here, that trans tool table is what I call my little test translation product here. So it's a name for the product, and I don't want it translated. If I put this through the standard translation to Danish or Swedish here, it's gonna give me, this actually says trans tool table in Danish, a Danish translation, and the same for the Swedish. Get a different, but Swedish version. This says something like translate tool table in Swedish. But I want this to be a term that's not translated. It should also always be called trans tool table in all languages. So what I can do is I can go out to my project here and set up general translation terms for the project. And what I'll do here is I'll say that this is you can set up per translation some fixed translations. These are applied after the translation. I'm not going to go through that here, but you can set up terms that are applied pre-translation, and in essence, it'll have the effect of protecting them against translation. So I'll put trans tool table here, like that. And then when I go now to my target languages, translation target, can remove this and do another translation of trans tool table in Danish. I actually get trans tool table. Go back to the Swedish translation. And let's try translate that. Yeah. This actually works now. It's the whole term, but this works even when the term is embedded into longer texts. So if I had welcome to the trans tool table as a text, it would also preserve trans tool table without translating that. All of the source code is freely available on GitHub. There's also a bit of documentation there. There's a setup guide to help you get started, and some of the tips that I showed in here in the video are also documented on GitHub. It's under my GitHub tile IT /BCXMan, but just search for BCXMan on GitHub and you should find it. You're welcome to take a copy or modify or contribute. I want to say thanks to Pike, who actually did the original version of this. And I've written below here what I changed. One thing I removed was the NAV 2018 support. So if you need that, you can probably use the original project. Although it's a couple years old, so it needs a bit of update to the latest BC. I hope it's useful for some. I know there's many other translation tools, but I kind of like the BC-based approach. It lets me use some of the BC tooling that I'm used to.